and a warm welcome to today's live panel discussion with Espire and Quadient on the topic Powering Your Ambitious CX Goals with Seamless Customer Communications. My name is Akshi Malhotra. I lead the marketing function here at Espire Infolabs, and I will be your host for the session. So before we move ahead, let us cover some of the important housekeeping items. The panel discussion today is scheduled for 45 minutes. All dial-in participants will be on mute mode to allow for a smooth presentation. Questions will be submitted using the question widget below. We will have a Q&A session at the end of the panel discussion. A recording of the webinar will be shared to you via email within 3 business days. Join the conversation by tweeting #AspireLive to let us know your thoughts. It is our endeavor to make today's session as valuable as possible, and we'll await for your feedback as well. So let's move our focus towards today's key takeaways for today's session. In this session, we will first take a look at the key trends driving CCM market space, and then we will discover strategies to fast track time and value. You will also learn about the real world examples of how rapid yet cost effective CCM implementation is achieved. And lastly, we will look at the various engagement models for future that organizations can adopt for better efficiency and collaboration and better customer experience. Moving on, it is my pleasure to introduce you to the speakers today. We are joined by Kaustav Verde. He's VP Sales at Espire Infolabs. With over 18 years of experience, Kaustav has been helping organizations across industries with digital roadmaps and CX transformations. Next up in the panel, we will be joined by Antoine Himon, Product Marketing Director at Quadient, having 25 plus years of experience in digital transformation and customer engagement solutions. At Quadient, he drives digital product strategy, go-to-market, and supports sales activities. Lastly, we gladly welcome Andrew Stevens, Group Principal for Banking and Financial at Quadient, with a rich expertise of 23 years in working with BFS customers. At Quadient, he enables banking and financial organizations to create better experiences for their customers through timely and highly personalized communication solutions. With that, I would like to hand over to Kaustav to open today's discussion. Over to you, Kaustav.
Akshi, thank you very much. And again, a warm welcome from my side to everyone who joined today. So one of the first topics that we'll touch upon is around the CCM market space, the trends that are happening. And Antoine, I would ask this to you. From a Quadient perspective, as well as Espire, we've been working on this market for a number of years. We see a lot of changes happening. During COVID, post-COVID, obviously a lot of focus around digital. There's a lot of cost pressures, obviously. And the technology keeps on evolving, specifically with things like AI, machine learning solutions in the market. So could you talk us through in terms of some of the key trends in the market, any challenges that organizations, clients are facing? And then from a Quadient perspective, what is it that you are adopting? What are the strategies that have been taken to support them on the journey? Antoine?
Thank you, Kaustav, for that quick introduction. If we can maybe move on to the next slide. First, customer communication management, CCM, is obviously facing up to a number of different challenges. And what I have put on the screen here are the challenges that our clients are coming up with. They would be typical challenges that would be supporting a business case for a CCM project. If I start from 9 o'clock onwards, from 1 to 8, the typical first challenge that we can see is the cost of having a CCM platform. And I'm talking about the cost of ownership there. What I'm talking about here is the maintenance of hardware, software, network, version upgrades. And we know from talking to our clients that it is a big burden on the IT teams. And a large cost. Second big issue that we see is the cost of postage. The physical mail being delivered to customers is expensive, and enterprises are looking for digitalizing these communications. And when doing that here, saving up to 80% of cost leveraging digital. However, digital is a nice thing. It is not straightforward. You need to collect customer consent. You need also to have the right infrastructure to be able to deliver these communications in a very secure manner. Data security is another big topic, and compliance to regulation another. If I pick up on the latter one, consumer duty regulation is an example that can have an impact on the type of communications and the content in the communications themselves. Sometimes a change in regulation would impact a large number of documents or communications to your customers, and that creates a huge amount of work for your IT team. Another big topic that is coming up is cost of migration, often led by companies that want to rationalize their cost, reducing the number of CCM platforms that they have, or also, and we saw that in the building society industry, I guess Andrew Stevens is going to be talking about that a little bit later, is when platforms have announced their end of life and you're forced to migrate from the legacy platform to something that is different, that is generating, in most cases, a CCM project that would have to be resourced with people that have the right skills, and that we know that there are difficulties at the moment to hire the CCM skills in the market. However, and that's why we're very happy to join up with Espire today. We know that there are partners such as Espire that have a large amount of professionals that have been certified. I know, and I think Kasab is going to talk about that later on today. Espire's got more than 80 professionals that have certified with Quadient and are able to resource projects very rapidly. Another topic that we see is the high level of business demand for implementing changes, often driven by, as I mentioned before, regulation, but sometimes also because the business needs to do some changes there to be more competitive. Gartner has conducted a survey around that here and found out that there are 5 times more demand from business than what the IT team can actually deliver. That creates a huge pile of a backlog of projects that needs to be done, and there are priorities to be met. Therefore, the business is not always served up the way they want to be. Last but not least, technology is evolving fast. New technology is coming in that will start to deliver value to businesses adopting these technologies. And that leads me on to the next slide, please, Ashley, that I want to illustrate. So Quadient has been the leader in the CCM industry for years and years, delivering a very strong platform that is running on-premise on your own servers or in the private cloud. We also invested in the recent years heavily in AI and SaaS as a transition. We have now a solution that is at par, both running in the SaaS environment and on-premise. This SaaS environment, this solution, come up with a number of additional capabilities or benefits. We are upgrading the platform every 2 months, bringing new innovation to our clients without impacting the existing communications that they have. And that enables mid-market enterprises, tier 2 enterprises, to access a very professional customer communication platform that they wouldn't be able to afford before, when they had to do a very large amount of investment upfront. So they would be here only paying for what they consume. That also applies for departments within large groups that have specific business issues with certain communications. An example of that is a large bank that is using our software to be able to resolve a problem around the business recovery, and they would be delivering only that little piece of communication without having to impact their IT teams. If we move on to the next slide, what I just want to illustrate here is that these new technologies would make the business users a lot more in control of their own destiny. They would be able to create the templates themselves, whereas before the IT team would have done that on their behalf. The IT team will still remain very much in control of the platform integration with the existing work stack and on systems such as CRM or ERPs of this world. But the business people would now be in control of creating their own communications to their clients and personalizing these communications when they are sent to the customers. Now, I'd like to hand over to Kassel, who's going to tell us how Espire can help us bring time to value.
Perfect. Antoine, thanks for that. So if we move on to the next slide, essentially, Antoine explained, in terms of the technology, and many times when we, talk and work with the clients, one of the key things we see is obviously everybody likes what they see. They want to, implement the solution, but there's a number of challenges all the way from, understanding the budget, how do we have a faster time to value, getting the right leadership buy-in, and so on. And one of the things that we are seeing is from a key focus perspective, when it comes to the time to value or fast tracking the time to value, these are some of the 6 aspects that I will talk about. So the first one, on the left-hand side, is really defining the right objectives, right success criteria, right business case. It seems quite obvious, that we need to have a right sponsor, we need to have a right business case defined for our CCM implementation, for our CCM project. But one of the things that happens is it may be hard to build the full business case as it needs, taking data on existing landscape. There may be multiple departments involved, multiple cost parameters, highlighting all the risks and, jotting them down together. And the whole activity or exercise, takes too long, even before, starting to deliver any value. One of the recommendations that, Espire and Quadient has, when we work with clients is to consider taking an incremental approach. Consider the right mix of, criticality and complexity, consider the right use case or the right, line of business where you want to start with, have a appropriate business case, and then, start in manageable phases or manageable chunks, and then go forward. Have an access to existing data. A lot of these existing data, may be available from operations team, may be available from the service providers, print providers that you're working with, or from using IT monitoring tools, and use that to feed in to help build the business case very quickly. And lastly, but not least, sort of work with some of the experts. Quadient, Espire, we've been working with clients to help build that business case, for these activities, and we'd be happy to sort of help and work together. The second thing is really from what we call as a time-bound project. As Antoine mentioned earlier, from a implementation of a CCM project or from a migration point of view, over the years we have seen some of these tend to be large, drawn out, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, or even larger projects and programs. And what tends to happen is, from a senior leadership perspective, it starts losing, the visibility. They start questioning the value, when will be the value delivered, and so on. One recommendation that we often have working with clients is to start with a small, pilot or an MVP, which could be around specific use case, and make sure that it is delivered within a quarter. This helps see immediate results. It helps, sort of test out that business case as well, test out the effectiveness of the solution for that specific line of business or for that specific critical communication. As an example, take a certain small percentage of the total communication with the right complexity. And when you balance, between criticality of that communication, complexity, and having the right speed, you can get that delivered within sort of 3 months. And that helps to sort of then fast track these sort of next phases as we move forward. The next thing is really looking at the right team structure. Now, from a team structure point of view, the key recommendation or the area that we've been working is having cross-functional agile pods. Now, this really helps in terms of getting a one team created, by bringing in the business stakeholders, by bringing in the IT teams and the partner teams together with the right sort of culture of driving that common behavior and focusing towards the value delivery within that sort of 3 months and then subsequently. And having the team structure is one part, but then following those right forums, having the right collaboration forums, having the right agile ceremonies, that really helps drive some of this activity and behavior. For instance, having the right daily stand-ups, having appropriate sprint planning and review sessions, having the right show and tell demos. This really makes sure that we have a strong focus when it comes to getting all the stakeholders together and delivering towards that common objective. The next thing is really considering using certain tools, certain accelerators. We'll talk about this in one of the subsequent slides as well, where there's a number of accelerators that are built by Espire and Quadient, which can fast track various phases when it comes to CCM implementation or project or migration activity. Integration is a key aspect, and from a integration point of view, it's key to understand that any solution, and for that matter, a CCM solution or Quadient solution will sit within the overall environment. The benefit that Quadient and Espire has is there are a number of connectors that are built, be it for core systems like core banking or claim solutions, data transformation or CRM, and really use some of those integrations to make sure that you fast track how the solution fits in within the overall landscape. And last but not the least, sort of choosing the right partner. As Antoine mentioned, Espire has been partnering with a number of organizations, really supporting on the CCM journey with a strong team, supporting not just from a capability or capacity point of view, but one of the key aspects is to supporting really as a catalyst. And when this happens, we are really seeing the benefit for the client. For instance, in many cases, organizations we are working really work as a catalyst to drive ideation, to drive brainstorming, to drive proof of concept. And this really helps drive that behavior in terms of there's a business case and we want to sort of get this delivered within time and setting the right sort of agile way of working as well. So those are some of the key aspects. I'll touch upon a couple of them as we move on to the next slide, Akshi. So from a accelerators point of view, and as we mentioned on the previous slide, there's a number of key accelerators that we have built over a number of years of working on CCM projects, CCM engagements. I'll touch upon some of them. Rationalizer, Espire Rationalizer is a key accelerator. What it does is it using the power of AI and natural language processing, and it reads different documents, different document types, identifies the commonalities between them, and it really helps to segregate together into appropriate groups, appropriate categories, and then that can be used further to be manually intervened, to be manually reviewed and rationalized. And this really helps fast track that initial process of analysis and rationalization. The next thing is really something what we call a zero touch. It's a script-based accelerator, which is customized batch and shell scripts built on top of Quadient. What this utility does, it really helps fast track installation, uninstallation of Quadient products, be it on-prem, like a Windows or Linux environment, or on cloud-based environment. And that really helps give a fast tracking for that whole process of onboarding a client and so on and so forth. And there are others as well. And we're happy to talk about or demo them separately as needed. If we move on to the next slide, we talked about earlier from a time-bound project or what we call as a short 3-month activity. Now, typical approach that we would see, we all seen is anywhere where it takes between 6 to 9 months, 12 months, or even more. And there's a large activity or time spent upfront when it comes to requirement analysis, requirement gathering, and this can continue to sort of delay the realization of value when it comes to the sort of top management looking at this project. As we mentioned on the previous slide, from an Espire and Quadient point of view, one of the recommendation is to look at that sort of 3-month project or what we call as a quarter-based sort of project. Look at a small chunk of 3 to 4% of templates or communication types. Could be a mix of batch, interactive, self-serve, choosing between the right mix of complexity, from simple, medium to high complex, using some of the accelerators that we talked about, and having the right team structure aligned. And using all of this, what we typically do is then try and make sure that the value is delivered for that particular use case, for that particular line of business within 3 months. And the way to start is we typically start with 2 to 3 workshops initially, jointly as Espire Quadient. And we've been working with a number of clients in this way to start off that initial understanding, help build that business case for MVP, and then subsequent phases and so on. What it does is it really helps bring in the speed in delivery. And then from a long-term perspective, it brings in the leadership buy-in for this whole program and the phases to follow. So that's really a summary, when it comes to the sort of time to value as we talked about. So if we move forward, one of the key things we talked about the product, we talked about the technology, we talked about how we sort of support from a time to value. I think it'll be great to see this coming to life with an example. Andrew, could you talk us through one of the practical use case, on the practical example in terms of how is this been done? What's the value delivered for the client? Andrew, over to you.
Sure. Thanks, Costa. I thought I'd take a look at things through the sort of the generic lens of transforming the customer experience, but then by sort of bringing it to life by having a specific spin on an industry. I've chosen building societies in this case. I'm going to talk generically, but they were top of mind because we've got real world situations that match everything that Antoine and Costa have already brought to life in their parts of the sessions with customers that we're working with. If you're not big on finance, very quick reminder of what building societies do. At their highest level, they provide savings and loan capabilities to their members. What they don't do is aim to make a massive stack of cash as an annual profit necessarily, and they don't look after the needs of external shareholders. That means in theory, building societies should already offer the single best customer experience you can imagine because they're member owned. They're not at risk of putting profit over engagement and long-term relationships. And yet they don't always deliver a world-class experience. The staff do. They're always amazing to talk to. If you get a chance to go into their branches and talk to the people behind the scenes and how passionate they are, but their processes that they follow, they're often very old-fashioned and very manual. Communications and their onboarding processes, they're often very based on paper, and they are built on probably described as old-fashioned language. Sometimes even getting hold of the customer's name is too difficult to be automated, let alone personalizing the full communication so it's meaningful and it really enhances the relationship. So we get old-fashioned, we get complex communications that people don't really understand, or perhaps they aren't delivered in a timely manner. And the end result, of course, is customers that don't get the experience that they hoped for, and a larger overhead as well on the contact centers because members call up and they ask what the letter that they received a week after they needed it actually means. Why is that? Well, when your purpose is to deliver for your members rather than make a big profit that you can show off to your shareholders, you end up with a smaller investment pot, and you can't usually justify an enormous IT team. The IT team, they're spending their time just keeping the existing systems running and just making updates for new regulations like consumer duty that Antoine mentioned. And you end up in a position where change is very difficult. Those all important interactions where with the customer, they sort of get left to decay a bit. And we have to make up for it with the amazing staff that work in the building societies. That's where products like the Espire Suite and the benefits that Antoine talked through become even more important to our building society customers. To start with, we put an entire layer in there to make integrating with the existing core platforms really, really simple. We don't make your IT teams work around any limitations or rules that we set and make a load of changes to their other core platforms. They're busy enough. So it doesn't matter whether you're connecting to an in-house built COBOL platform like I used to program many years ago, or a building society core platform, a third party like a Finastra or a Sopra or a Mutual Vision or any of the other ones. It manages just fine. And it manages fine even when those platforms have been pretty much bent out of shape because they were originally bought and then there was lots of customization and extensions added by your own teams. It's not just about keeping IT work to a minimum. There's options that free up IT resources altogether. That could be by automatically keeping everyone up to date every 2 months with the latest version of the software, rather than making your IT leaders reserve people to run a big upgrade project every 2 years that slows everything else down around the building society. Or maybe it's by supporting real operational model changes and empowering those business teams that people that really understand the content and communications to actually manage the changes themselves instead of having to rely on IT to do it. And finally, it's important because, well, when you're spending your innovation money, you're taking a massive risk. In building societies, there isn't enough of an innovation pot to get it wrong and then fix it by spending again. So the first solution has to deliver results. And we've got options to have everything up and running in just hours. And then we've got partners like Espire to then take that platform and start the transformation journey immediately. So you're able to get the return on your investment that proves that you made the right choice without the need for showing a 10-year business case that shows you're going to make money back someday and getting sign-offs from every member of the board. Costa mentioned a 3-month turnaround for the first results. That's genuinely possible. with Inspire. Great example of that is a building society that we're incredibly proud to be working with in the UK right now. They've been looking after a poor communication solution for quite a while. Eventually, they got hit with an end of support message. Happens a lot, right? You've not got enough money to spend on everything that you want. You've got to make difficult choices, and they'd always chosen to spend their budget on something else. But then they got hit again, proper double whammy, end of life and consumer duty regulations at the same time. And if there's one thing that you can say about consumer duty, it's that it's all about interacting with your members and doing so in a way that the member can definitely understand and is genuinely reasonable. So they needed to change and change really quickly. So they came to us and they asked if we could help. They're not swimming in spare cash, so they looked at the whole market, and we're proud to say they chose us and the Inspire suite ahead of everyone else. And we got it up and running straight away for them, like I said. Then we arranged for Inspire to be integrated with MuleSoft and with their core platform, and then supported the migration of 90 communication templates into our solution. They had over 160 communication templates in the old platform. Inspire's a bit cleverer, so there's much less of an overhead in future. There's no duplication of content. They've got a much lower cost to maintain. And in this case, we did the whole thing in 90 days. I say that partly with a lot of pride, but mostly because there is a natural assumption that when you hear people say 90 days in a presentation, people don't believe us. Critical communication transformation costs into the millions, right? It's only available for those that can afford it. It takes years. Not necessarily. This building society now has access to world-class technology across over 50 branches. They can communicate on the channel's the channel of the customer's choice. They can personalize every interaction so that the members really do see how much that building society cares for them. Inspire may be the finest solution on the market, but it's actually a lot more affordable than you think, and it delivers really, really quick value. That's pretty much it from me. We've looked at the trends, we've looked at the challenges, we've gone into how services can help. There's a lot of different ways, though, of working with other organizations to really start that transformation journey. Costa, why don't you bring us home by talking us through the ways that we generally see out there on the market and how people might normally go about doing this?
Sure. Thanks, Andrew. So from what we would call as an engagement model or engagement options, as we said at the outset, the market's evolving. There's a lot of changes happening, and enterprises are aligning in different ways in terms of the way they work on these projects with the internal teams, with external partners, vendors, and so on and so forth. And one of the things that really work is when we are working with the clients is to have sort of various flexible engagement models. In the sense, horses for courses, having the right engagement model for that particular phase or that time or that requirement. And it really ranges from, we talked about earlier around, that initial business case definition, helping support an assessment activity when it comes to the right technology fitment, defining the right roadmap, or doing a sort of assessment versus fitment for your specific use case. And we typically do that as what called as a pilot or a value case based engagement model. Moving forward from that, as we said, we have a large team when it comes to CCM implementation, CCM support, and so on. And there's obviously a standard model capability or capacity supporting in a sort of a time and material basis. But the third one, which we highlighted earlier, and Andrew explained as well, is really on what we call as the sort of packaged offering as a short 3-month project, which is really delivered towards a specific outcome for specific use case, and it makes sure that the client has that specific budget defined and outcome delivered within that given time. And that's something that helps kickstart the journey as organizations are working on the CCM implementation, migration, consolidation of platforms, and so on and so forth. Managed services, this is really around managing the platform, keeping it up and running, providing a 24/7 support, SLA-based service or an outcome-based service. And that's something we've been sort of working with the organizations as well. But as the relationships evolve, as the relationships mature, with your partner, one of the things that we recommend is sort of what's called as a COE-based model or a core flex model. In a sense, what it does is it has a ability to have a core team, which works as a extension of organization's team, providing them all the sort of capability that they need, not just from a Quadient perspective, but there's Quadient, there's the relevant integrations, there's testing, design capability, and so on. And if you move on to the next slide, you just sort of demonstrate how that looks. So just an example, where we have a team aligned, which provides that, capability as a core team, working with client as a one team, as we've been talking about. But then it provides that budget certainty in terms of, what that team does, what that capacity and capability is available. Plus, there is an access to the wider center of excellence, from an Espire perspective and from a Quadient perspective, to support in terms of, bringing in innovation, bringing in ideas on an ongoing basis. And there is a flexibility in terms of, as the projects evolve. Typically, what happens is we need to start off with, defining the workflow, defining the design, implementation. At the next stage, you would need to sort of have access to, sort of skills or capability to define, probably those business self-serve that Antoine talked about. And it gives that flexibility to bring in the right teams at the right time. So that's really a, summary of some of the engagement models, that we've been working, and that we really see help in terms of, how flexibility organizations, can work on this. So that's a summary in terms of, the key points that we wanted to cover. If we move on to the next slide, just a quick introduction, about Espire and Quadient. So from an Espire perspective, some of you may, are aware about us. So we are a industry leader when it comes to CCM implementation, and it was recognized by independent analyst Espire last year. Also, very recently, as of last month, we won an award around Best Digital Transformation in UK Customer Experience Awards 2023 for one of our engagements, primarily around CCM. We've been working for a number of years. There's a strong team with 250 plus consultants, 80 plus specifically dedicated on Quadient, working with number of clients across various CCM engagements, be it comes to that value consulting, migration, implementation, COE models, and so on, across, verticals, including, banking, insurance, utilities, and so on. And with a number of, accelerators that we build, which really can be used for the right phase, we're supporting clients on the journey and, happy to talk. And obviously, we're quite proud to partner and work with Quadient as a leader. Antoine?
Yes, so as far as Quadient is concerned, and we the leader in the CCM industry, and the analysts such as IDC and Aspire have ranked us as the top leader. We also have more than we've got hundreds of people working in the UK. They are Quadient professionals dedicated to customer communications, broadly speaking. Last time we organized an event in London, we had more than 300 plus clients and partners coming up to that event, and Andrew Stevens organized a really, really great event to showcase what we were able to do. We have decades of experience in the UK and in the rest of the world. That's important to mention. But last but not least, 96% of our customers are willing to recommend Quadient after they purchased it. So I think we've got a very strong base to do business in the UK and to deliver value with Espire. With that said, Aski, I don't know if you've got questions for us. If it's maybe time to answer.
Thank you, Kaustav. Thanks, Kaustav. Thank you, Antoine. Thank you, Andrew. It was a great discussion indeed. It was really enlightening for me to learn about evolving CCM market space, how enterprises across industries can achieve faster time to value with scalable CCM solutions, right teams, right accelerators, tools, engagement models, and lastly, how Espire and Quadient's long-standing partnership has been helping global brands, accelerate their CX transformations. So with that, let's move on to the Q&A session. Feel free to submit your questions using the below widget in case you have not done yet. We will try to answer as many questions as possible within the scheduled time, and the rest will be answered to you on mails. So, Antoine, till now, we have received few questions from our audience. And I think this first question is, I think you covered that topic. They say that Quadient adopts an any-prem approach. Can you clarify whether you offer migration capabilities for transitioning from on-premise solutions to SaaS, or if you have distinct technologies for these two deployment models?
Thank you, Aski, for that question. I think it's a good one. Quadient has been there for years and years, as I mentioned before, running a CCM platform. With the new technology coming in, obviously we need to do things slightly differently. However, what we've done is a straight path through to leverage the existing assets that have been built in our existing platform, and to make them work straight through in the new SaaS platform. So there is no migration as such. There is just an uplift of the existing assets, and that would automatically work after they've been just moved around. As an example, one of our clients has been doing that here, and they were able to run 100 applications in the new SaaS environment after only 45 days of validation after it's been uploaded. So pretty straightforward, no migration, just a quick uplift, and the existing workflows would be working in the new environment.
Great. Thanks for the answer, Antoine. So next question is about, you talked about building societies, but also said that other industries can use it too. Is this the ideal company size for Quadient Inspire, or does it work for larger organizations as well? And if yes, then which other industries do you have experience with? I believe, Andrew, would you like to take that?
Yeah, I can cover that. I saw this one come in just as I was finishing speaking, and I'm glad it was asked. Building societies can definitely use the Inspire platform, but the critical requirement is that you have a large amount of critical customer communications that need to be personalized, that need to be meaningful, and to resonate with your customers. Starting at, say, 50, 100,000 a year as a smaller organization, but going up endlessly. So we have multiple building societies as our customers. Some of them are small, some are large. We have 8 out of the 10 largest banking, financial services, and insurance organizations in the world that work with us, that are sending billions and billions of communications and interacting with their customers across goodness knows how many channels, whether they're digital or physical, every year. So it works for every size of company in that sense. In terms of other industries, yes, there's the building societies, and then in the wider banking, financial services, wealth management, all the different types of insurance we have customers in. We also have utilities of all the different types, telecommunications, government, public sector, healthcare. I'm sure I've missed some. And if anyone's on the call from one that we've missed, I'm sorry. There's just that many different ones there. But that really gives us an advantage, because we're not in a position where we can only tell you about best practice from your industry. We can take best practice from all the different industries, merge them together, and then pass that information back out to our customers. So in the building society example, we might be giving best of breed advice from a telecommunications company over to that building society, so that they can really enhance their communications in a way that they might not normally do if they'd only looked at their own different sector. So yeah, every different industry you could imagine, pretty much.
Okay, great. That's I think that answers the question of the participant. Next question says, could you explain a bit more how cross-functional agile pods work in the context of a migration project? I think Kaustubh, you covered that, so it would be better if you can answer that question.
Sure, Akshi. So as I mentioned in one of those earlier slides, having a cross-functional agile team or agile pod really helps in bring the sort of right stakeholders together, from business or IT or so on, and make sure that there is a pace which is needed to sort of deliver value. Now, if I talk about an example, we are working with an insurance client for close to sort of 2 years or more. And what's been done is it's a small agile pod which constitutes business point of contact. There's IT stakeholders, there's an agile project manager, and there's a team of dev, test, and so on. And we also have our center of excellence supporting as and when needed. And what really is done here is there's like a sort of long-term roadmap which is then broken down into a quarter-on-quarter roadmap. which is then further broken down into sort of weekly sprint backlog. And in this case, the sprint planning is done on Jira boards. So they manage the sort of the sprints, have a sprint review sessions, and sort of the relevant ceremonies that I talked about are aligned. In terms of the daily stand-ups, there's a show and tell every 2 weeks to make sure that the incremental implementation is happening as per the overall quarter roadmap and the long-term roadmap. And this has really helped drive sort of value use case by use case, or sort of line of business wise as well, as things progress. And there's other examples as well. In a sense, in this scenario, what's happened is we worked with working with this client. It started off as one of the first agile projects in effect, and then that's really helped drive the culture across some of the other IT projects, even beyond sort of CCM as well, to drive that culture, drive that behavior. Happy to talk, if there's any other specific requirements that we can support on. Akshi?
Brilliant. So thank you, Kaustubh, for that answer. So we are pretty much up on the time today, and we are extremely thankful to you all for taking out time and listening to us. As promised, we shall be sending you a recording of this webinar within 3 days via email, and we look forward to hearing from you next time. Finally, I would like to thank all our panelists for their time and valuable insights. It was a really insightful session. Until next time, here's your host, Akshi Malhotra, signing off. Goodbye and have a good day.
Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone. Bye.